Hello and welcome to the Fun Kids Bookworms podcast. My name is Bex and I love books, which is quite handy actually because this week I'm speaking to a bunch of brilliant authors. We've got Kiran Millwood Hargrave on the way chatting about The Shadow of the Wolf Queen. But first, it's Lucy Strange and Pam SMY telling us about their brand new adventure series. It's very Halloweeny, very spooky, very fun. Now we're here to celebrate your brilliant new book, Lockett and Wilde's Dreadfully Haunting Mysteries, The Ghosts of the Manor. Am I assuming, Lucy, this is the beginning of a series, am I right?
This is the beginning of a brand new spooky, funny mystery series, Lockett and Wilde's Dreadfully Haunting Mysteries. And yeah, this is the first one, and it's just out. It's out now.
It is, perfectly in time for the spooky season. Let's put it out there like that. And just such an exciting adventure story. So, Lucy, tell me where we meet Matilda in the book.
Yes, so Matilda Lockett is our heroine, and she is part of a travelling theatre show, Signora Valentina and her Shadows of the Dead, and so in which Matilda's Aunt Evelyn pretends that she can communicate with ghosts and pass on messages from the dead and that sort of thing. But it's all an act. It's all done with stage effects and smoke and mirrors and that sort of thing. But then the twist is Matilda discovers she actually can see and communicate with ghosts.
What a way to tease that story. Now, Pam, were you drawing all the pictures for this? Is that right?
That's right, yes. I'm very lucky to be able to illustrate Lucy's wonderful, wonderful text.
Yeah, how did it work? Did you get the text and you pick and choose where you put the pictures in? Or were you told, we want a picture here and a picture there?
It's a bit of both. I get the manuscript and there's a whole team that work on it. So Lucy has ideas about where would make a good illustration, and I have ideas about where would make a good illustration, and the art director has an idea where it would make a good illustration, and between us all we come up with a list of things that would just fit perfectly with the text. And there's lots of speech bubbles and dialogue throughout the book, so it needs quite careful organising as to where all that goes. So it's a team of us who decide where things go together.
I was just going to say, your illustrations perfectly match the kind of vibe and the kind of atmosphere that Lucy's provided for you in the writing. You guys, it seems to have a lovely symmetry towards you. Or did you know each other before you worked on the book, or did somebody find you and say, yeah, Pam would work with Lucy?
Yeah, so what was lovely about this project is that it was a collaboration from the very start. So Pam had illustrated a couple of my other books that I write for Barrington Stoke, which are these lovely dyslexia-friendly stories. And we met up and we just had a lovely chat, and we decided we wanted to work on a story together that was kind of true to we both loved the gothic genre and kind of spooky supernatural stuff. So we wanted to create something that was true to all of that, but that was really really fun and accessible, fully illustrated. So it started with that. It started with a collaboration. It started with a friendship, which was a really, really lovely and quite unusual way for a book like this to begin.
And just to echo that, I think one of the things I really loved about Lucy's writing, which I haven't done in illustrated books that I've worked on before, is that Lucy has made these really vibrant, strong characters with especially very strong women. There's Matilda Lockett herself. There's Aunt Evelyn, who's running this sham theatre show, but is very glamorous. And then there's also the Baroness, who is in a bit of a pickle, but really, really knows her own mind. So there are these really strong female characters, and it's very, very funny. So for me as an illustrator, I got stretched by Lucy to try things I hadn't done before. And so I had an absolute blast in illustrating this.
Now, Lucy, tell us all about this adventure and this mystery as well. Without giving too much away, I guess, what is the mystery that we've got involved in here?
Oh, yeah, how can I go without giving too much away? So Baroness Beauchamp has invited them all to exorcise, to get rid of this very, very frightening ghost who is haunting the Folly, which is part of Beauchamp Manor, the estate of Beauchamp Manor. And she has got an art expert who has taken up residence in this Folly, and he is going through all the valuable art collection of Beauchamp Manor, but he can't get on with what he's meant to be doing because of this terrifying ghost who is haunting the Folly, and so they hold a midnight séance to try to get rid of this frightening ghost. And what's lovely, I think, one of the things that was really fun working on this was getting just the right amount of scariness because we all want that kind of lovely, shivery, goosebumpy sort of feeling, but we don't want nightmares. So I think we've got this right. I think we've got the balance of the spooky, scary, and the kind of the warmth and the humour as well. So hopefully no nightmares from these stories. I think they're much lighter and more fun than that.
I was going to ask about this because I scare and spook very easily, to be honest. So were you very careful to make sure it wasn't too scary?
Yeah, I think so. I spook easily too, actually. I really do. I think, if you've got that sort of imagination that just latches hold of scary things and then sort of spits them back out at you at, really kind of dark and potentially terrifying moments. So I've got that sort of brain as well. I spook easily as well. So I wanted to make sure this wasn't going to be this sort of story to actually traumatize anyone. That's absolutely not what we're setting out to. It's all about like the good thrills of a story that's just scary enough.
And Pam, were you feeling like you had to match that vibe as well and make it kind of like a bit spooky but not too spooky?
Yes, I quite often work on stories that are really quite spooky and quite dark. So it was for me a real challenge, but in the best way, to get to match Lucy's writing, to get there's some gentle tensions in there, and we as audiences, as readers, we like a little bit of spark of being a little bit of a shiver, but without that terror. And what's really great about Lucy's writing is that she takes us to a moment of emotional vulnerability between some of the characters, or a little bit of tension in terms of what might be about to be spooky, and then beautifully balances that out with some humour or lovely warmth, and actually just being able to match that with the illustrations is a joy. You've got just enough Gothic light and just enough Gothic buildings, but without terror. There's no terror in this book at all. Every time it feels like it's getting a little bit spooky, Lucy's there to guide us back out with the writing, to give us something funny, and to really great character lines and great dialogue, and everything feels very safe.
Cozy Gothic we've gone for. Cozy Gothic.
Big thank you to Lucy and to Pam. All right, next up, we've got Kiran Millwood Hargrave. Now, this is her book, The Shadow of the Wolf Queen. This is where Ysolda has lived her life in a safe forest haven, but one day, a mysterious earthquake changes everything. It's been a while since we've spoken, but in that while, you have written so many books. You've been busy.
I have. It's a mystery to all who know me, because I do spend a lot of time just sort of sitting on the sofa. So I have managed to write some books.
Presumably, maybe writing some books from the sofa then? Or do you have like a specific workspace?
Yes, do not do what I do. My poor back. I am getting of the age where I'm going to have to start looking after it and sitting at my desk like a proper grown-up.
No, I'm all about the slouching life. That's me. Stick with it. It can only be good, right? Now tell us, you've got a brand new book out in your Geomancer series. This is the second book, The Storm and the Seahawk. So if we've not read the first, where do we find your characters? And I guess, who are we finding out about?
You join our characters essentially exactly where the first book, In the Shadow of the Wolf Queen, left off. It's as though no time has passed, but they're a world away from anything in the first book. They're on Wolfback. My main character is Ysolda, and her enemy/ally Era, who is the daughter of the feared and fearsome Wolf Queen. And in tow, they have a very reluctant servant of the Wolf Queen called Sammy. And together on the trusty back of the wolf Ravi, they are approaching the coast of Norvega, which is my version of Norway.
And so what are we looking for on this adventure?
So what the first book was about was really not what Ysolda was going to end up looking for at all. She thought that she was going to an ancient forest to find an ancient girl, but the ancient girl wasn't there, but proof of her existence was. So their journey next takes them to the Draken Peaks in my version of Norway, and they're going to follow a river that's going to take very many treacherous turns. And what they find at the summit of that mountain is something deeply disturbing and deeply magical.
Oh my goodness, you like to leave us on little cliffhangers there, don't you?
I do. It's like it's my chapters all over again.
No, fair enough. Now, one thing you're brilliant at is building worlds and making these incredible creations. And how did you kind of make your own version of Norway? Did you plot it out in your head? Did you draw it in a map?
Maps are my secret weapon in basically every book I've written, and it's something that I always encourage any writers listening to do, is to make a map of the landscape where your adventure is going to take place. Because then as you plot the route your characters are going to take through it, it's like you're going on the adventure alongside them, and any landmarks that they encounter can become, really rich inspiration for your writing. And that's basically what I do. I feel like when people say I'm good at creating worlds, I feel like I've cheated, because really I'm basing it so closely on what actually exists. And so I think actually, instead of making up stuff, what I'm doing is really turning people's attention to what already exists and how extraordinary the world around us is. There's a bit in this book where Ysolda is deep underground, but she can see perfectly. And that's because of a particular kind of rock called pyrite. And there are actually over 200 different kinds of rock that can glow in the dark. So a lot of the things that you might think are magic in this book are actually real. They're actually inspired by nature.
So you must do like a lot of research for this. I mean, also, did you kind of research folklore of different cultures as well? Did you look around at the history of the areas that you wanted to kind of like emulate?
Definitely. And it's such rich territory. Like, I've always been obsessed with the sagas of the Vikings, because my dad is obsessed. And I also have a little bit of a geek in me for rocks, because my dad is a geologist. And so he studies rocks. And so he kind of passed down that love of mythology and the culture of telling stories aloud, because I really love reading, but what I love even more is being read to. So I love audiobooks, because what we forget often, I think, is that stories are mostly meant to be read aloud, and that's how we sort of tell each other stories most of the time. So this book, it was very much inspired by that culture of storytelling, and by those sort of Viking sagas, and sort of sitting around a campfire, not knowing if the hero is going to survive or die. Because another thing I love about the Viking sagas is they're not afraid to kill their heroes.
I had read that your dad was a geologist, and it must be quite nice to bring all that into your books as well. Is that how you knew about the glow-in-the-dark rocks?
Yes, we actually saw some of those in Wales, and he is the sort of. It was annoying when I was growing up, if I'm honest, because we'd sort of be driving somewhere on holiday, and he'd literally pull over to the side of the road to show us like a rock. And that's not really, when you just want to go to the beach, it's not really what you want.
Not ideal, no.
As I've got older, I've started to like appreciate him more and his knowledge more, and just the idea that geologists can think of time in a totally different way from most of us. They can think of deep time. So instead of thousands or even millions of years, my dad can kind of wrap his head around billions of years. And that's still something I'm working on. But it definitely writing these books gave me a new appreciation for pulling over to the side of the road to look at a rock.
It's the simple things, isn't it? That's all right, as long as it keeps you entertained. And also, the book is also kind of like talking about climate change and how important that is. And I know at the end you mentioned, how fascinating planet Earth is. I'm guessing that was a big deal for you as well to put in the book, those themes.
I mean, it's what I think about most is the world that we live in, the world that I have a daughter now that she's going to inherit. And I'm really fed up with grown-ups saying, oh, it's going to be fine because the children are better than us. It's like, no, it's kind of up to us grown-ups to start making the changes now and stop kind of passing the buck on to the next generation. So I'm really passionate about human creativity, and even though it so often sounds like just doom and gloom, the one thing I believe in more than destruction is our capacity to come up with solutions. And I do think ultimately that is where all the hope lies, is that we will come up with solutions. But in the world of The Storm and the Seahawk, the world is kind of at war with itself, and humankind is trapped in the middle of that. And there's, at the very end, Ysolda finds herself in a village, well, it used to be a village, but it's swelled to a town, almost to a city, because it's touted as a safe haven, a place where people can flee. And, you know, people who have migrated there to try and be safe are treated pretty badly. And I see that sort of reflected in our world, how we talk about people trying to make crossings and they're fleeing from the climate crisis or from war that is often aggravated by the climate crisis. And it really got me interested in how we can just be better and do better for each other, but also how, if we want to tackle most of the world's problems, we need to face up to climate change and to start actually making the changes necessary.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, this is obviously the second of 3 books in this trilogy, and I'm all about giving some Fun Kids listeners some exclusives here. So I want to know, if we're reading the second book right now, is there something to look out for that might help us with the third book, or perhaps something that's a little Easter egg from something that happened in the first book? I want Fun Kids listeners to get a little extra from this interview that no other person would have if they didn't listen.
That is such a good and fun question. I would say read or listen really closely to what the ancient girl says, because the end is there.
Yes, I love it. Thank you. I'm glad that little gamble paid off. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for telling us all about The Storm and the Seahawk, and hopefully we'll be able to chat to you about the third book when it comes out as well. Thank you so much, Kiran.
Thank you, Bex.
That's it from Fun Kids Bookworms podcast this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, do let me know. Comment wherever it is you're listening to the podcast, or drop us a line. Go to funkidslive.com. In the meantime, remember to like, subscribe and follow, and I'll see you soon. Bye.